Welcome to Know Before You Go for the 29th Sunday in Ordinary Time. My name is Father Brian Walker. We oftentimes think that there are so many distinctions between the way we act in society and the way that we act in church. Here in this country, we have a tendency to rationalize it because we feel that never the twain should mix. After all, we know that this country was founded on religious freedom, and because of this, one can never mix the two ever. What I do in society has no bearing on the way I live my life or the way that I think according to my faith. The problem is that we really believe this. Isn't it strange? Do we really believe that everything we do as a citizen in society is not influenced by the way we exercise our faith? Or do we believe that the way we exercise our faith has no bearing on who we are as American citizens? The premise of all of this is that we are a people and that we are free. We are this people because we have been given these rights as people born in this country. Supposedly, that's why people such as the Pilgrims came here in the first place. They wanted to establish a place where they would be able to exercise their faith in freedom and could not and should not be persecuted. Every school child knows this. But there is a fine line that must be walked to make these distinctions. And it is in these semantics of what is said and what is not said that makes all the difference in the world. In the gospel today, we hear how Jesus is challenged. We know that he always walked a fine line between what was said and how he acted. There were times when he point blank did not say what was pleasing to people. Love your enemies is a perfect example of what was considered harmful in his time. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth was the law of the land and still seems to be in some cases and in some places. But in this particular pericope, he is challenging the people to understand the holy and also to be good citizens. There are certain responsibilities that we have as citizens, and then there are things that we are obliged to do as followers of our faith. It all depends on how we interpret it, and it all depends on what can and at times is offensive. We've had this discussion over the course of so many years. A prime example is the question of abortion and what the law says. Again, we have to ask ourselves, which law are we referring to? There is the law of God, and then there is the law of the land. People have fought over this interpretation for so many years, and it seems as if we can never reach a decision for all. People find it hard, if not impossible, to separate their thoughts as citizens from their thought as faithful members of their particular faith. People can't seem to separate because the law of God should be the law of the land. There are those who don't drive a car because of their faith. And then there are women who don't uncover their heads. Why? Because of the law of God. There are those who won't vote because of their faith. And then there are those who won't work on the Sabbath because of their faith. But then again, there are those who have this sense of my faith has nothing to do with it. They don't even mention faith. Why? Because they see themselves as atheists and have no particular faith. For them, the law of the land is the only law. There is no conflict. I come to you today as a man of faith, and oftentimes I am even torn about what makes sense and what really are our freedoms. I realize that we have freedoms, especially as citizens of this country. But what does that mean? Jesus uses the example of the coin and paying taxes. He talks about paying taxes to Caesar, and yet at the same time, he talks about being faithful to God. These people were living at a time of occupation, and many of their freedoms were taken away. They were not always able to decide for themselves, very much like different parts of the world today. Yes, they were trying to trick Jesus, as it were, in many ways, but I also think they wanted a good answer. They needed a good answer to give the people to make sure that they would be content and not stir up the pot. Jesus basically tells them that they can live in society and do what is expected of them and still be a faithful people. Yet, not everyone will be happy with that choice. There are those who want everyone, and I mean everyone, to follow the same law and to do the same thing. If it's right for me, it's going to be right for you, whether you want to accept it or not. In the end, it's making sure that everyone does it the same way. But we know that there are different ways of achieving the same goal. There are those of us who are Roman Catholic because we believe that it is the right path for us. There are those who are Lutheran. There are those who are Orthodox. There are those who are Anglican. And then there are those who are Baptists. Each of us follows the path that we feel is right for us. I am a Dominican preacher, but that doesn't minimize the work or the fervor of the Vincentian preacher. We all have to follow our call. Each of us has a path, and I do believe that each path can and should lead to the Almighty. Let us not be so quick to judge each other on the path. Let us learn from one another and help each other along the way. There is so much conflict in the world today. Each and every day, we hear in the news about all of these differences. We hear about wars. We hear about violence. Innocent people on many sides, but differences that refuse to allow us to come together and to be in peace. Deep hurts cause deep scars. Let us learn from the message of Jesus and do our best to listen to one another and not be so unforgiving. None of these conflicts are new. In some cases, they have been going on for thousands of years. We can decide what we are going to hold on to and what we are going to let go of. Amen.